let's take a look at one future first-round draft pick's opinion of Philadelphia, calling it a perfect fit when he went and visited them in an official top 30 visit. We'll also look at some of the other players who have officially gone to visit the Philadelphia Eagles. A trend might be starting to grow. And also Nick Sirianni talks about Zeke Elliott. Doesn't seem that interested. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to the Thomas Mott Show on a Thursday. Hope you guys are doing great. A lot of stuff going on today in the world of the National Football League, especially the Eagles and their draft situation. Let's begin with the Nolan Smith visit, which has gotten a lot of attention on Twitter the past couple of days. Nolan Smith officially went to Philadelphia for one of those top 30 visits, right? Each team is allowed to bring in 30 NFL draft prospects to their facilities for a top 30 visit, and the Eagles are starting to kind of, work through those, and Nolan Smith was very impressed, apparently, with what he saw at the NovaCare complex. Here's the NFL Rookie Watch's official Twitter handle's tweet, quote, Nolan Smith said in a recent interview that he just had an amazing top 30 visit with the Eagles this past week. Smith said that the Eagles organization just seems like a perfect fit for him. If Smith is selected by the Eagles, he would be able to reunite with Georgia teammates Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. Smith said it would be a dream come true to play with them again, end quote. Now, if you watched my show yesterday breaking down the top 10 most likely draft picks that the Eagles can take at number 10, you noticed that Nolan Smith was there at number 6. And my criticism of Nolan Smith is he just a good combine player, or is he a good NFL player? He was very good in college. He wasn't the best pass rusher in college football. No, I think Tyree Wilson was a little bit better. You made the case, obviously, Will Anderson was a little bit better. He still is considered a top 5 pass rusher in this draft, so we know he's good. But is he good enough for the number 10 overall draft pick? That was my kind of fear and still is, right? Can you take this guy at 10, but also wait until 16 to take him, right? Could you trade back and be able to get him? That's what was the point of yesterday's show, going into the actual options at 10, and why I thought Nolan Smith did not even make my top 5. I think he'd be great. Now, the question really is, for me, is scheme fit. I said this last night on the Philly, with the Philly Special Shows Josh Davis on our Wednesday Link Live. I just wonder if the Eagles can have 2 outside linebacking pass rushers on the football field at once, a.k.a. Hassan Reddick, the best one in the National Football League, and then Nolan Smith. Do you want him to back him up? Do you want him to come in on a limited snap count? That's the question here. But for all the Nolan Smith fans out there, and again, physical freak in terms of what he did at the NFL Combine, the Eagles clearly like the Georgia football players. They took 2 of them in last year's draft, and if they have a lot to say and are raving about Nolan Smith, a.k.a. Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, want him, maybe the Eagles can make a move and reunite and just recreate the Georgia's defense, because it was so good in college football. Why wouldn't it work in the National Football League? So we'll see. Again, a lot of these players are going to say they had good visits with everybody. You're not going to go visit the Titans and say, man, terrible visit, horrible team, not a good fit. I mean, come on, you're a draft pick. You're just trying to get drafted in general. But this is interesting, one to note. And for all those people wanting offense at number 10 overall, you got to remember, and again, I'm still fine with Bijan at 10. We talked about that. We got to realize that Howie Roseman, as your comments say, is a little bit more interested in the trenches versus skill players, at least historically, with the number 10 overall draft pick. So let me know what you guys think. Nolan Smith at 10 or somebody else? I want to read the comments. I think a lot of Eagle fans are very pro Nolan Smith, which honestly I am fine with. Now moving over here to the official top 30 visits, dibirds.blog has a really good breakdown in terms of the 2023 NFL Draft Prospect Meeting Tracker, and they have the full list of reported meetings Philadelphia has had, whether it's a top 30 visit, whether it's a formal meeting at the scouting combine, whether it is just a combine meeting, aka informal, whether it was a meeting at one of the postseason All-Star games, meeting at a pro day. They have the whole list. And we talked about some of these guys before. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was a formal meeting. Obviously, Lindsey Scott was there at the pro day. Tank Bigsby was a formal meeting at the Combine. What I'm interested in, though, is those top 50 or top 30 visits. Who officially is known to have gone to Philadelphia? Bijan Robinson, boom, he was a top 30 visit, and he really was one of the only skill players who has had an official top 30 visit, according to this website. DeJuan Jones, the tackle from Ohio State, Paris Johnson, the tackle from Ohio State, both have had top 30 visits as well, but you'll see the majority of the top 30 visits here are on the defensive side of the football. Luke Van Ness, the edge rusher from Iowa, he was a top 30 visit. Broderick Martin, the inside defensive lineman from Western Kentucky, he was a top 30 visit. Brian Bresee, I think it was Bresee as you say his name, the defensive tackle from Clemson, top 30. Jalen Carter there was a top 30 visit. That didn't get a lot of news or noteworthiness on Twitter, but he was. Emmanuel Forbes, the cornerback from Mississippi State, was a top 30 visit, and Kelee Ringo to round out this list. Now, if you can count, you'll notice that's not 30 people, and so either Philadelphia is still conducting those visits, which they will do over the course of the next 30 days before the NFL draft, or a little bit less so, but they might not have also reported that the visits were happening. Remember, Bijan Robinson posted to his Instagram he was in Philadelphia, giving people the idea that he was doing a top 30 visit, so the list list is incomplete yet, but those are officially the guys who have come. Very interesting to see that the majority of them are pass rushers or defensive tackles or offensive linemen, which kind of tells you that Howie likes offensive linemen. Although, of course, Bijan Robinson did go there, and so all the Bijan lovers out there, I know a lot of you are in the chat room right now. Give the show a thumbs up. I think you guys would very much like Bijan Robinson over these tackles or pass rushers, but that remains to be seen. Okay, this is from 2 minutes ago from CBS Sports. Nick Sirianni was asked about Ezekiel Elliott, and he didn't slam the door on Zeke coming to Philadelphia, but remember all the Zeke drama last week, and everyone was like, oh, I'd sign him for cheap. He's going to sign by the end of the week, and then nothing ever happened. Well, Nick Sirianni was asked about it at the NFL annual meetings, and I think he basically said no without saying no. Listen to this. Quote, "We feel really good about the room as it is right now," Sirianni said Tuesday. "I'm really excited about the room. Obviously, really excited about the guys we have in that room." Okay, he's very excited about Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, Trey Sermon, we'll talk about him more in a second, and obviously Rashad Penny, which tells you there's probably not a lot of room for a Zeke Elliott. Now, doesn't mean they can't draft Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs or get somebody in the third or fourth round, but the idea of taking a non-starting running back in Zeke Elliott and adding him to a running back field that is basically full of non-starters, you make the case Gainwell is working his way there, but, Penny is not supposed to be a starter. He's kind of a rotational back. Gainwell still really, I don't think, is officially a number one back, even though the Eagles want to elevate him to that. Trey Sermon doesn't get reps, more on that in a second, but I think the idea of Zeke to Philadelphia, as interesting as it was and as fun it is to troll Cowboy fans, and trust me, I know, trolling Cowboy fans is very, very fun. I just don't think it's going to happen. And Sirianni kind of hinted that they're pretty confident and comfortable with where they're at, which I think will make a lot of Eagle fans happy because most of us were like, hey, I would sign him for cheap, sure, but the idea of Zeke and Eagles green after being like the most hated Cowboy player for a long time, it didn't sit right for a lot of people, which is understandable. Now, Nick Sirianni was also asked about Trey Sermon, because remember him, Trey Sermon was supposed to be a running back the Eagles were actually going to use, and then they pretty much never used him besides that one game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Nick Sirianni said this: "Trey didn't get an opportunity to showcase his talents except for that game against Jacksonville, but I can't tell you how many times in practice he made a cut, or you just saw him in his pads, or he made a play on a screen, or whatever it was, and you're like, man, this guy's a chance to be really good." Now, you take that as, okay, hopefully Sermon gets more touches this year, as most Eagle fans were clamoring for this past year, but it also makes me wonder, okay, he's doing all these things in practice, why didn't you give him a couple of carries in the game? Like, could you not swap carries with Scott or Gainwell or even Miles Sanders and let Trey Sermon have some carries? It's so weird. They'd be like, he's really good in practice. Wow, he looked amazing. I can't believe how great he's going to be, but we're not going to use him literally ever throughout the remainder of the season. And that's basically what they did after the Week 6 game against Jacksonville. So, we'll see about Sermon. Again, does that mean that they're going to draft a running back, not draft a running back, use Sermon more? I don't know. But it is interesting for Nick Sirianni, and anything interesting from Sirianni or the National Football League, I talk about. So obviously subscribe and stay tuned for more of that. Okay, other things we have not touched on yet. We touched on them yesterday on the Wednesday Link Live. Jeffrey Lurie has confirmed that the Kelee green jerseys are officially coming back, and that is, I think, good news for everybody here. Clay Harbor, the former Eagle, who has played in a Kelee green jersey, here's his tweet, says, quote, "This is the season we will reintroduce the classic Kelee green, and I'm super excited about it. The Kelee green is back, baby. How we feeling about the change, Philadelphia?" Well, I feel good, but I think the Eagle fans need to understand it's a alternate jersey. It's not the official full-time jersey, and Philadelphia really can't go back to them as the official full-time jersey just based on all the apparel you see behind me. Everything has to change. All the logo has to completely change. The colors would have to change. Everybody would have to get new jerseys. All of the branding it'd be way too much. And so it'll be an alternate jersey. They're going to sell a ton of them. I probably will buy one because they will look so sweet, but I like them as an alternate jersey and not as a official full-time bring back forever the Kelee greens. Again, I think they're going to look really good. I think the Jalen Hurts, mock-up picture in the number 2 Kelee green jersey is fantastic, but they're alternate, and I think that's exactly how they should stay. I'm 27 or 26, 27 next week, but 26, and I'm used to this color green. I'm used to, midnight green as they call it, and so I'm kind of happy with that. But for all of you guys who are a little bit older, you might want the Kelee green to come back, but it's just going to be an alternate this year, which still thumbs up for Kelee green coming back as an alternate. Okay, we'll go ahead and end with this final story. This is kind of an NFL national story of the day. Eagles Wire, though, has the write-up. This is very, very interesting, and I actually will go ahead and use this tweet here from Ari Mirov on Twitter. And this is going to be interesting for the next couple of months whenever we're adding undrafted free agents and then keeping them during training camp. The NFL is going to quit cutting down rosters, slowly at a time, week by week. They're going to have one final cut, and I think it's at least interesting. Quote, the NFL has approved having just one roster cut, meaning teams will trim rosters from 90 to 53 after their final preseason game. That means that over 1,100 cuts around the NFL will take place after the third and final preseason game. Now, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, everyone gets cut in one day. But this actually means everyone gets to keep playing through every single preseason game, and not everyone has to be cut. And therefore, you can have more rotation, you can have less wear and tear on people, and you give people more chances to showcase themselves. What if you're slightly banged up week 2 of preseason, and then you get cut, versus you can stay on the roster till week 4 and ball out in the 4th preseason game, week 3. There are only 3 preseason games. But you get my point. I think this is a good move by the National Football League overall. Never really sure why they had to do a certain amount of cuts each week. It's just like, well, we've done it forever, so we're going to keep doing it forever. But I think this is a good move by the National Football League. Very curious your guys' thoughts on that as well. Okay, all time here today on this edition of the Thomas Mott Show. Plenty more stuff happening next couple of days and weeks. And make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the notification bell. I appreciate you. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.